Welcome back to Last Call. Caden Colford alongside Jake Helton as we cover UND sports, football, basketball, you name it. And it's a little different because UND's football season over after they lose to Grand Valley in a tough game. But that means it's basketball season in full swing. Conference play starts tonight against Lewis. A lot to like about the men's and women's team here at the University of Indianapolis. But we'll start with this men's squad. Coach new from Marion, Scott Hetty, and you bring in an almost entirely new roster. First impression of this team?
Well, I mean, it's a very fun team to watch. We've already seen, 5 very close games. In the last game, it turned out to be a blowout, but at halftime it was 20-25, a defensive battle. We've seen a little bit of everything from this team. We've seen games in the 50s where it's defense back and forth, getting a stop, getting another stop on the other end, and then we've seen games go in the 90s against Kentucky Wesleyan. I believe it was 96-94 in overtime. So we're seeing some high-scoring games. We're seeing some high flyers. Dylan Ingram had 2 putback dunks, some of the most impressive dunks I've seen in a long time. And tonight, you're going to want to tune in because there's an electric player that's going to be on the floor. I think you've heard me and Caden talk about him a little bit, maybe, but Rob Stroud will be in the building playing for the Lewis Flyers right now. He's averaging about 14 points per game. So we'll get to see him, but heading into GLVC play, as you said, I think this team is a very stout team. It's a very electric team. They bring a lot of energy. You see a lot coming from the bench. Tucker Tornada, he got his first start against Roosevelt, a double-double. He had 12 rebounds at the half. So this is a team, a well-put-together team by new head coach, and it's a pretty much a new team all around. I think only 3 players staying. So
Kelvin Moko, Dylan Ingram, and Zach Schul all coming back. He only had 2 guys at Coach Hetty's press conference when he was announced the new head coach here at the University of Indianapolis. So it's definitely a new look, and that's been the challenge to overcome, right? How to assert these new guys, a new team, a new system into the locker room and translate it to the floor. Well, as it sits right now, they're 3-2, playing a tough non-conference schedule. Kentucky Wesleyan is always going to be one of the best teams in the region, alongside Lake Superior State. We also saw them in the regional last year that UND hosted. So these are tough teams. You're not playing the scrubs of the GLIAC. I mean, you're playing a little bit of everybody. Saginaw Valley's a tough team, and then Roosevelt, where you get a big win over 65-48. But now you step into GLVC play, and these are the teams that you're going to see time and time again. You start to get a feel for these teams as you play them a couple times throughout the season, then hopefully hop into the conference tournament. That's a long way away, a lot of basketball to be played, but we're excited about that. And you crack me up, Jake, when you start to bring up the Greyhounds' opponents tonight in the Lewis Flyers. It should be a fun time. Rob Stroud probably going to have a couple of highlights. He's made a couple of Greyhounds look bad in the past. He propelled a comeback in Romeoville last year. We were there. If you heard it on the radio, you heard a lot of screaming when Devin Vanderheit hit a game winner to knock off the Greyhounds that last year in Romeoville. So the Greyhounds look to get on the upper end this time at home at Nixon Hall. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting game against Roosevelt. Dylan Ingram finally able to kind of find his shot, 21 points. He was really hitting almost every mid-range that he took, and that's what you like to see.
Corner.
Yeah,
soft.
You love to see that out of him because he's one of the returning guys. He's a senior on this team, one of the leaders, as Coach Hetty has pointed out multiple times. So not only are they looking to him for defense, but now they can start to look to him for offense. Also, transfer Deshaun Jackson coming from Eastern Kentucky. Man, that guy is a bucket. He'll pull up in anybody's face and hit a 3. Does not matter. But another team off to maybe not as good of a start, but we're seeing some things that we like with this women's team. Coach Sharp, she has put together an entirely new squad. I think Alana Wells and maybe 2 other players, Ruby Gardner, one of those, and Haley Gilbert, I think were the only ones other than obviously the star player, Patricia Chikamba.
And then 2 of those that you mentioned didn't even play last season, redshirted last season. So almost completely new squad for both of these teams. For the women, you try to engage Patty more than you did last year, right? Patricia Chikamba almost averaged a double-double, but we've seen those numbers skyrocket here in the past couple weeks. She's really had a great time. But the Greyhounds on the season, 2-4, still working out a lot of kinks, but you also have a new head coach at the helm in Jama Sharp. So there's a lot to undergo and a lot of personalities that have to mesh, and they've played a pretty tough schedule as well. They started off with number 5 in the country.
Yeah.
That's tough to do. Tough to do.
It is very tough, and then you go and face a Malone team that is very talented. They were pretty good shooting the ball. They had an explosive second quarter. I think they put up 40 points, something like that. But as you mentioned, Shikamba, she's averaging 18. Someone who we hadn't seen at the beginning of the season that's now starting to progress offensively is Alana Wells, finally coming out of her shell. She had 11 points last game against Findlay, and so you look at them and they're a growing team. There's a lot of things, as you said, that need to be worked out. So you're finding your scorers, you're finding really your ball handlers. That was something that they struggled with against Ohio Dominican. They had a pretty solid press, couldn't really get the ball down the court. We're seeing a lot of turnovers out of this squad right now. As of today, 22 turnovers per game. Obviously, it's going to be hard to win games when you're turning the ball over that much, but there's a lot of offense coming from the defense. Amira Sappinder, very crafty on the defensive side of the ball. She's got great hands. She's a cookie monster. That's what they call her, the stats team. When we get our little rundown of game notes, they have her as the cookie monster on there. So you're seeing a lot of good things out of this team, but obviously a lot of things to improve on as you head into GLVC play.
Yeah, defensively, top 5 in blocks, top 3 in steals, and that's where you make your money, and then you obviously convert it into fast break. They play tonight against the 5-1 squad in Lewis, who almost always sits atop the conference with Drury and women's basketball. What do they need to win tonight?
Well, I mean, you're facing the reigning GLVC champs, regular season and tournament team, so this is a very talented team. You got people like Jenna Badali. She's a very good ball handler. She's going to be a good shooter, three-point shooter. This team isn't hitting as many threes as they did last year, only averaging about 7 made threes per game. But this is a team that we know can shoot the lights out. We saw them do it last year twice, and then obviously we've seen them do it some this year as they're 5-1, playing very well at the beginning of the season. But they're coming in to the home of the Greyhounds. We've seen them play a little bit better on the road, actually, than we have at home, but I'm sure they're going to be looking to turn that around in this one.
Thank you for that, Jake. We'll hop into college football Division I level when we come back, talk some Hoosier football.
There's often a moment when you're helping somebody with math where they just suddenly get over that little barrier and they get it. It's a nice aha moment, and I really like being involved in helping students achieve that moment, and we do get a lot of those here in the tutoring lab.
How is 66-0 in the Oak and Bucket game for the Hoosiers? That's the score, 66-0, as the Hoosiers knock off Purdue. Well, that's saying it lightly. They destroy the Boilermakers in this one. Curtis Rourke, 6 touchdowns and a monstrous effort to kind of submit IU spot in a 12-team playoff format. A lot to like from this team and a lot to like heading forward.
Yeah, I mean, you see Curtis Rourke, a bounce-back performance after a not-so-great game against Ohio State. He had 349 yards, 6 touchdowns on only 31 attempts. So, very talented guy, obviously. We've known this. We talked a lot about it. I even kind of jokingly had him in my Heisman at the beginning of the year. I think that looks a lot different now. But this is a very good team. We know that. We posed the question last week, is this a playoff team? I think Kurt Cignetti is trying to show that his team is a playoff team with this dominant win, not messing around. Some people thought this might be a trap game like Ohio State and Michigan or some of the other games that we saw, many upsets this weekend. But you see them come out, leave no doubt about it. They're sitting at that 9 spot in the AP poll right now, and I think that that's probably good enough, like you said. Kind of cements that spot in the college football playoffs, as they're not going to have to play in the Big Ten championship game. No Oregon, no Penn State, Oregon and Penn State will be playing. They won't have to play either of them, so they won't really have to worry about that loss at all.
That'll be nice. But what people are asking, they look at IU's schedule, and if you look at the teams they played, their Big Ten schedule, it's legitimately the bottom 5, 6 teams, every single one of them. So it's hard to say that IU really played that quality Big Ten schedule, but 11-1 says a lot. And the wins that they do have, they're winning by multiple multiple scores. If not 2, then 3, 4, 5, and a lot of games like this one against Purdue. So it's hard to make the case, but I want to pose the question to you, Jake. Are we looking for 12 of the best teams, or are we looking for 12 teams with the best resumes?
Well, it's an interesting question because you look at the teams that are in there right now, and you would like to think that those are going to be the best teams, but then you see a team like Boise State. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not a good team because they are. They pushed Oregon to the brink. I think it was 34-35, the final score of that one. So they're competing with good teams. Yes, give them the chance to play. I'm not saying that. But if we're looking at best teams right now, I mean, there's no way you can't put Alabama in there. You can't put Miami. Yes, they struggled the past couple of weeks. They had some bad losses. But, like, if you're looking at power rankings, you're looking at these teams, then that's what I would go off. Right now, the committee kind of takes a mix of strength of schedule. They look at the scores, obviously. That's why that big 66-0 win is kind of a help for IU, as well as they didn't want that game against Ohio State to get out of hand because the closer it was, the better it looked on their resume. So that's kind of what the committee's looking for right now. But if you were to just look up college football playoff predictions, that bracket is pretty much set. Yeah. Iowa State and Arizona State is really the question mark on that. There's also the possibility that Georgia might fall out if they lose to Texas. There's a possibility.
It's tough to say, and I bring this up. A lot of the complaints are coming out of the SEC, right? Because the first team's out. You have Alabama, Ole Miss, and a couple of those teams. So coming out of the SEC, where we've had this conversation before, what's the best conference to play in? Do you think IU wins a matchup against Ole Miss or against Alabama?
Well, I mean, that's the question that's being posed, and it was kind of an issue for a lot of SEC fans. They thought that they were going to have to come up to Indiana, play in the snow, in the cold weather. I mean, you think about when this game's getting played, it's going to be the weekend of the 21st. So it's going to be cold here in Indiana, the Midwest, all of that. So you've got teams like Notre Dame. They're going to be hosting a game. Right now it's looking like it's going to be against South Carolina. Then you have Penn State. That's another kind of Midwest team. They're a little bit higher up. I don't know if it's officially Midwest, but it's going to be snowy there in December. And you got these SEC teams. They're not used to the snow, which poses a big question. Desmond Howard on College Game Day, he was posing the question. He said, or not really a question, but he was saying, those SEC schools, they don't know nothing about the Midwest. He's a guy from Michigan, former Heisman winner. He knows a lot about playing in the snow when teams like your Oklahomas, your Texas, they don't see a ton of snow, so they're going to come up here.
And that's why seeding means a lot.
Absolutely.
Right? That's why you're hearing these complaints coming out of the South. That's why everyone's saying that IU, sometimes some people are saying that they shouldn't even be in the playoffs. And as we look at whether we're looking for the 12 best teams, the 12 best resumes, it's a tough question because IU no doubt has one of the 12 best resumes in college football. Are they one of the 12 best teams? That's where I get caught up. Should the playoff picking committee choose a resume or choose the best team? It's a tough question, but I feel like you have to choose the best teams.
I mean, we saw them do it last year. It wouldn't be a surprise if they did. Florida State, 13-0, lost their quarterback, and they were out.
The resume was there.
But we saw it pay off against Georgia. They lost by, 60 points? It was. I mean, I think they scored one field goal, maybe a touchdown, but it was a 50-point game, and I think the committee kind of proved their point with that, putting them up against Georgia. I think they wanted to prove a point last year, and I think that's what you're looking at this year. If you're, I don't know, you got a UNLV team that has a chance. It's Boise State UNLV in the Mountain West Championship, so that's going to be could be the number 12 spot. If Boise State wins, they'll get the number 4 seed, but if UNLV wins, they'll get the G5 spot at that 12.
Hey, conference champions will be crowned in the coming week, and the playoff picture will be decided on Sunday. That coverage begins at noon. Make sure to tune in, and we'll break it down the next day right here on Last Call. That's it for college football. As for right now, we'll move to Colts and Pacers up next.
Good morning, Greyhounds, and welcome back to your Wednesday show. We have some very exciting things to talk about with our very special guest.
So what do you find unique about UND, and what kind of hold you here.
What are you doing?
Watching Good Morning Greyhounds every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m.
Colts playing at Foxborough. First time they bring out a win since 2006 when Peyton Manning would win against Tom Brady. Now it's Anthony Richardson and Drake May. We're back at it. Colts win 25-24 after a game-winning drive from AR himself, who had a pretty solid game. Throwing around 50%, a couple touchdowns through the air, touchdown on the ground, a 2-point conversion to seal the deal, and the Colts get it done. What do you think?
I mean, when you look at these stats initially, you see the 2 interceptions by Anthony Richardson, and you're going to say, you might think it wasn't a great game. Stats-wise, not the best. Obviously, you come out of here with a win. I think any Colts fan is going to be happy with a W at this point. 6-7 on the season, but one of those interceptions was a tipped interception, so that's one of those ones that you can't necessarily put the blame all on him. It wasn't necessarily a bad throw, just kind of unlucky, we'll say that. But able to win another close one. This is what we talked about, or at least I did a couple weeks ago. Every single one of these games has been a 1-score game, other than the Lions game. I think was the first one that was a double-digit or 2-score loss. So you look at this team, they're starting to win these close games. That's what we were looking for them to do. They needed someone. I thought it was going to be Joe Flacco, a veteran. I thought he was going to come in, be able to lead them in these close games. Just didn't happen. Anthony Richardson, fire has been lit underneath of him. I mean, he's been playing 10 times better than what he had been before this. I mean, the only thing, in my opinion, the missing part, so to speak, is Jonathan Taylor. He still just hasn't shown up. He did have 96 yards on 25 carries this game, but you'd love to see him get in the end zone. That's where I've just been really, the big question mark for me this season has been Jonathan Taylor. He's been kind of inconsistent, in and out. I think he's been hurt a couple of times. So that's the consistency you need on this team. Once you get him going, I think that will help out Anthony Richardson in the pass game. I've talked about it 1,000 times. You got to be able to run the ball to pass the ball, or those safeties, they're just going to sit over top of your receivers.
Man, we talk about this all the time. I think a lot of pressure falls on the offensive line because that establishes the run game. And obviously, I feel like Jonathan Taylor, when he works in the open field, is amazing. Guy's strong, he's fast, can lay down a stiff arm, run over a guy, but he has no space to create anything. And a lot of that is due to the pressure, due to the fact that teams know that they can send 6, 7 every play and really give this Colts team a hard time, whether it's in the passing game, whether it's in the run game. Colts have not been able to beat pressure, have not been able to beat the blitz, and a lot of that is on the offensive line. And Anthony Richardson might need a couple more seconds, which is a lot of time than your average NFL quarterback due to his inexperience, but that's something you have to live up to, right? I mean, it's a matter of whether you want to win or whether you want to lose, and it starts with the offensive line.
Yeah, I heard a crazy stat, like he was pressured on 60% of his dropbacks, and it's going to be hard to win any game when your quarterback's being pressured 60% of the time. These stats, considering that, are fairly impressive. But in my opinion, this one, the reason it was close kind of falls on the defense. I don't want to sit here and harp on them and say that it was a bad game, but in between the 20s, horrible defense. The Patriots were doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, but the Colts defense just decided to step up. Anytime they got past about the 30-yard line, they just stepped up, got some stops, and I really thought they were going to hit that 68-yarder. It was that close.
So are you satisfied with this Colts team and how they're playing to this point? They're 6-7.
I mean, yeah, if I'm a Colts fan, I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is playoff potential. You win a couple more games in the season with 10 wins. That might be winning out, I believe. So you win out. You have put yourself in a good position to maybe make a playoff position, the wild card game. So you're sitting in a good position. Yeah. You control your own destiny at this point if you're the Colts, and I think that's where you want to be.
I mean, at this point, if it was the Lions or the Chiefs or anything like that, I'd say the answer is no. You're not satisfied with just a 25-24 win over the Patriots. But for a team that we fit the panic button over, for a team that we've asked time and time again, week after week after week, to fix things, to get to winning, for them to win is a big deal. And for them to string a couple solid games together moving forward is going to be the deciding factor of whether the Indianapolis Colts will be in the NFL playoffs or not.
Yeah, I mean, heading into the bye week, like you said, sitting at 6-7, maybe, I mean, I think you win 3 games, you get to that 9-win mark. That puts you, obviously, 9-7, that's math. But I think that puts you at a good position, even if you do lose that last game, 9-8. And it's not the hardest stretch of games. You got the Titans, which really probably should be a very easy win. They didn't play well this week against the Commanders. And then you got the Broncos. That's in 2 weeks coming after the bye. So I think that the Colts have a good chance to win out here.
Me too, and I think they should. As for the Pacers, though, are they winning out? I don't think so. They're sitting at 9-12 so far. They've had a couple solid games. They beat the Wizards, and then they beat a hurt Pelicans team, and then the Trailblazers. But now they've lost to the Pistons and Memphis, and 2 straight games, which, you know, Memphis is a good team. It's a good team, but to get blown out by the Pistons in an NBA Cup game is not a great look. As we look at what they have going forward and what they can do, you have the Raptors up next for the NBA Cup, and then the Nets. So a couple games where you could really get on top. But as we look at this team, what's missing, and how do they get back to an Eastern Conference Finals team?
Well, you look at all of these scores, and one thing that I'm noticing is the Pacers, they struggle to win games when it's not 120 to 125. And when it's not above 120, they really struggle. I think that they've won 3 or 4 games when it's been below 120 points. So that shows you that it is the defense that is the problem. On top of that, they're turning the ball over about 14 times per game. It's going to be hard to win any type of game whenever you're turning the ball over 14 times a game. As for the NBA Cup, it's been a pitiful performance from them in that. It's just, I don't know what's been going on. We saw them dominate last year in the NBA Cup. This year it has been the complete opposite, a 24-point loss to the Pistons. And the Pistons aren't that good, but they just have had the Pacers' number this year.
When I look at this Pacers team and I compare them to last year, I'm thinking, why did we change the entire way this team flows, the way this team operates? Last year, Tyrese Halliburton was the man. He was shooting 25 shots a game, dishing out 10, 12 assists, and while his stats aren't terrible, Jake, I mean, this isn't the guy on this squad. You're looking more to Pascal Siakam, which is not a bad number one, and Ben Mathurin's getting a lot more shots. I just don't like the way this team's going. You had it set. You had your guy, but now you're trying to make another guy. You can't get greedy with that in the NBA because that time to develop somebody, those shots in game are crucial. And obviously they separate wins and losses here. And you mentioned the Pacers team that wants to see 135, 120-point games. Well, when the ball's not in the hands of a superstar or your guy, you're not going to win those shootouts. That's why you're losing to John Morant. That's why you're losing to Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, I look at this, and the more that I look at Tyrese Halliburton, I look at his stats, I watch him play, the more I realize he is a true point guard. He is my best player comparison for him is white chocolate without the sauce. So he basically is just like a flavorless white chocolate. He is just going to be a good passer. He's going to get the ball where it needs to go. He's going to get his 8-9 assists per game. He's going to go about his business. Might not be able to score as many points as the Pacers wanted him to. I think that's what they wanted. They wanted him to be a passer and a scorer. He's proved that he can score when you need him to occasionally, but is like he kind of struggles to when they rely on him.
And for anyone who didn't understand the white chocolate reference, he's talking about Jason Williams, a former Kings player. But I just think that Tyrese should be the one option scoring that. That's when this team was at their best. When this team shot 3 after 3 after 3, Tyrese Halliburton shooting half of them, this team was good. This team could put up 140. And I know you're trying to make up for a lack of performance for a couple straight seasons on defense, but it can't take away from your offense, right? I know you're trying to insert Ben Mathurin, trying to turn him into a really solid two-way player in the league, but I see him as a six-man. I see him as a great six-man, possibly even a six-man of the year candidate. But I don't think he should be taking shots away from Tyrese Halliburton. That's why this team's not succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, you got 5 people averaging double digits. Ben Mathurin's the number 2 scorer on this team with 18.5 points per game. So, like you said, he's taking shots away from Tyrese Halliburton. But it doesn't look to me like Tyrese Halliburton's looking for shots. If you watch him play, he's a pass-first guard. That's why he struggles to score. He doesn't necessarily always look to go to the basket. But I think that we'll hold off on the panic button still. I think that they're going to be all right for that. But, Caden, we've got some picks to make.
Yeah, I'm going to hit them. Pacers don't look great to me. But we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that and head to the Primetime Pick Em. Records were even last week, and we'll get to that here in a second. But a couple games to decide. First and foremost, Browns heading to Denver. What do you think? Or, well, don't worry. I got you. Denver in this one. I don't like Deshaun Watson's Cleveland Browns. I just don't think they're at their usual identity. You know, it's not a Browns team that you want to see win.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what my gut was feeling yesterday, but I'm pretty sure it was the Broncos. So I think that the Denver Broncos are going to win as well. Bo Nix, he's looked pretty good, pretty solid. He's been getting me a lot of points on fantasy. That's honestly the only reason why I picked him. He's been playing good. The defense actually has looked pretty stout the past couple of games, so I like the Broncos in this one.
We'll head to the next matchup, Green Bay taking on the Lions. The NFC North, I always say it's the best division in football. These are the best two teams in that division, and the Lions are the best team in the NFL, but they're not winning this game.
Yeah, you think that I got the Lions on this one. I think we're going to have to disagree on this one. This will be me. I'll be able to get my pick back for the Chargers selling on me last week, but I think that it's going to be a cheese grater again. I don't know if you saw that meme of the guy wearing it was a Lions fan wearing a cheese grater at the Green Bay game, but that's exactly what it's going to be. They're going into a monster of a team. We saw them absolutely destroy the Colts, and I think that we see them beat Green Bay.
They for sure destroyed the Colts. That's something to put on the resume, for sure. As for Green Bay, they've been destroying the Dolphins, the 49ers. I like this team. I like their offense. I'm not the biggest fan of Matt LaFleur, but he's great in the regular season. As for Detroit, I think they kind of got softened up by the Colts, and I like Green Bay going on the road and winning one against the best team in the league.
Fair enough. All
right. This last game could be a make or break. Chargers and Chiefs. Jay Herbo is going to take this one out. This is a league winner right here. I'm telling you. This pick right here, the Chargers against the Chiefs, a league winner.
No, I learned my lesson last week. The Chargers suck. Can't rely on them at all. I'm going with the Chiefs. I thought I was actually going to go with the Chargers last night. I did a slight bit of research, and I looked it up because my statement for why I picked them was going to be because the Chargers had been winning the past couple matchups. My memory is horrible, apparently, because the Chiefs have won the past 6, and so I think they make it 7 here. Patrick Mahomes looking pretty good. Obviously, still a lot of injuries with that team, but I think that the Chargers really don't stand a chance.
We'll see. It's up there. 15-11, baby. Back on top. Just wait for the picture. Just wait for the banner. We'll hang it up in the studio right there. Colford with the 22 on it.
Well, we got 2 more weeks.
However many you want to play.
All right.
We can go into basketball. We'll go into baseball. And we'll seal the deal there. I like my odds.
All right. We'll keep her going.
But a couple different picks today, so you definitely have a chance to.
It's going to be different next time. It's going to be. I'm going to be in the lead.
We'll see, Jake. This is last call. Catch you next week.